balance beam, another thing that you want to ensure is as you land and the knee flexes up, that the knee is straight. It's not drifting out this way, and it's not inward too much. All right, you want to land straight up, so that when you come over, you can fall over the leg. We want to be able to hold it. Now in this position, you can see that my foot is below the knee, all right, as I hold this position. My head is transferred back to where the weight is over the sole of the foot.
You have to pick up your leg. Or, I don't care how you do it, but you have to get to this point. Teachers do it like this, but it don't matter. You have to come to the stop. You have to stop. You have to stop. That's the balance.
I don't know where to begin, really, because I think ultimately, Pedro, the nuance of pitching deliveries is different for everybody. Look, what are some of the keys in deliveries that you look for that made you consistent?
But quickly you realize, and once I say this, everybody will realize that everybody needs good balance.
Okay.
They need to feel comfortable on the rubber and somewhat have a quiet landing where they can feel comfortable to pick up the spot where they want to hit, and actually have a good release point and a consistent one.
Okay, so I heard balance.
Yeah.
To me, that's number one for you.
Yes.
All right, so let's get to this, because
Yes.
I want it. Everybody wants to know, right? Pedro Martinez, Hall of Famer.
Yes.
So what was your keys to a good, consistent balance? Was there any kind of, like, some sort of rhythm test? Or
when I got here, I wanted to make sure that once I brought that leg up, I was in balance good enough to actually ride down, separate on time, and ride the slope.
Was there a drill you did?
I did.
So was that it?
I got a lot of balancing in the clubhouse. I would do a lot of balancing, go pick up the ball, do stuff like that.
It's a great drill that you can do on flat ground, and then eventually you want to be able to do it on the balance beam. And this will ensure that your weight is on the ball of your foot and that you're keeping your weight back as you're leading out for the number 2 position. What I want you to do is just start with the jumping jack position, thumbs and index finger together, knee high. Now, I got the weight on the ball of the foot. As I start down to get into the number 2 position, I stop and then bring the foot back up without touching the ground. All right? That takes some practice to get used to the balance. It's up, number 2, back up. All right? You try that a couple of times, then do it on the beam.
All right.
And have this ability.
Did it matter what you led with? Tree, standing tall and fall, or did you drive with your lower half?
It's a combination. The first thing I wanted to do was give you my hip.
Okay.
The line, the stripe of my pants going forward.
As we're leading out, in order to keep your weight back, and this is something that you'll do on the balance beam, and when you get on the mound, it's very important. So as you start to lead down, as the hands separate, it's a feeling of pulling back with the upper body. You lead out with the front hip, not with the shoulder. The hip goes down and out first before the shoulder moves at all. So you are leaning back slightly, keeping the head behind the belly button. Right? Your belt buckle, your belly button, your nose is back here. So as you lead out, right, so that when you land in the high cock position, your nose is still in the center of your body. That will allow you to properly open the hips and generate the power with that explosion of the trunk and the hips.
Then you explode with your hip.
I wanted to use the inside of my feet, the inside of my knees, and this trunk area to stay inside, go, and then take off. And so therefore, that allowed all the transformation of my body to bear most of the whip and force and put less on my shoulder so that at throwing 94, 95, 95. So in other words, here's a drill that you don't see anymore, but putting it on a flat so I don't fall flat on my face.
Go ahead.
Is there was a sense that, you know, the 2x4 drill. So we kind of used this drill to stay on plane.
Okay.
Right? That was just one of those drills to keep you online with going to home plate. Because if you stay on plane and use the right muscles,
To stay under control. I like
you
that.
stay under control.
All right, here's an early drill that you can use on a balance beam. Take two baseballs. I like to put one in the palm of my hand, and that requires that I put a little bit of tension, a little firmness into the hand and the glove, which will be important. We'll see in a minute. If I don't squeeze the ball, obviously it's just going to drop out. So one ball is kept in the palm, the other one will just hold as if we were pitching. Hands together, feet apart like we're in the stretch position. Weight over the balls of the feet. Now we're just going to shift back, bending the leg, knee high, and then we're going to drift out into the high cock position. Now this is the high cock position, all right? You'll notice that my back foot is just starting to turn. The ankle is rolling over. This is what's known as squishing the bug, all right? We'll get into that a little bit in a minute. So as I land, you'll notice that my nose should be above my belt or slightly behind it. The front foot is pointed at the right-handed batter's box.
And everything, and then ride the slope of the mound and make sure that I landed in a 45 degree with my toes so that I could have the flexibility to bend that knee at the time I release the ball. When you step on the rubber, you want to be, if anything, kind of across a little bit in a 45 degree angle. Once you land, you come from here, you want to keep all this in line. And then you go and you land in a 45 degree. Your cleats are designed to actually break the ground and keep you in line. A little bit, and also square himself up like John says. Square off a little bit in a 45 degree angle.
All right, as we're leading out, you'll notice that on the balance beam, you have to land on the sole of your foot. Now, the reason that I like that drill so much is that there are a lot of pitchers that land on their heel. Now, they used to teach power pitchers to land on the heel. I really don't know why. A lot of times what it does is as you land on your heel, it causes the hip to open too much, too early. So if you lead with the side of your foot, and as you land, you just open your hip just enough to land on the ball of the foot and point the toe towards the right-handed batter's box, you can keep the upper body completely closed.
actually, inevitably, in the Kingdome, my home for 10 years in Seattle, I had a nice conversation with Tom House and Nolan Ryan. I think it was probably being in the American League West at the time, and Tom House being a former USC Trojan, I think he took the time to obviously see some mechanical flaws that I still had that hadn't been corrected in high school, college, 4 years in the minor leagues, or even the first couple of years in Montreal or in Seattle. And it was one small little thing that they were going to show me when Nolan threw a bullpen session in the Kingdome, and it was simply falling on the ball of your foot, your landing leg. And what I was doing, I was landing on the heel of my foot, and that would inevitably make my momentum when I was falling towards home plate or trying to fall towards home plate, my momentum would be turning because my heel would be twisting and I would be falling off towards the third base side. So inevitably they taught me and showed me how to land on the ball of my foot, and then naturally my momentum went towards home plate, and I was able to, have everything follow and go towards home plate, and I wasn't losing my arm angle, and my velocity was staying the same, and it just became very impactful. One small little thing like that was really what I was looking for, inevitably, to remain consistent on those games that occasionally I would have. Those games became more consistent, and I really actually started having a lot of fun in the game.
My front elbow is used as a sight towards home plate. If you were to draw a straight line or follow this beam, straight along the beam from my back elbow, my back shoulder, my front elbow and shoulder pointed directly straight towards the plate. Now, some pitchers like to extend the arm out. That's why I think the ball is a good idea in the glove. What you do is you hold the glove palm down, the fingers are going towards the hitter, the thumb is down. In the high cock position with the glove out towards the hitter, you'll notice that my elbow is still even. Now let's turn the beam so it faces the camera. All right? As we come down, okay, you'll notice that my toe is pointed towards the right-handed batter's box. My elbow, front elbow, is used as a sight. There's a straight line right along this beam from my front elbow, my front shoulder, my back elbow, and you can see my fingers on top of the ball, thumb underneath, pointed towards the shortstop. If I was to bring the arm out towards the hitter, all right, palm down, thumb down, holding the ball, still gripping firm enough to hold on to it, you'll notice that my elbow is still used as a sight. Again, that's why it's important, too, that we use the elbow as a sight. Our elbow is the sight between home plate, the front shoulder, the back elbow, and then the hand is on top of the ball facing the shortstop for right-handed pitchers. If you want to get the glove out, put a ball in the glove, practice getting into the high cock position, putting a little bit of tension on that glove to hold the ball in it. But again, the elbow, shoulder should be perfectly in line with the imaginary line between home plate and second base.
This is how to go. This is what you're throwing to the target. This is your eyeball, all right? Yeah, bullseye. Yeah, bullseye. Right there. And that, right there. Right there. Then we here, you drive. Now, right. When you do this, automatically, you're gonna fly up. Yeah. You're gonna fly up and it's gonna fly. Yeah. But if you stay close.
All right, now from the front, you can see this is the number 2 position. All right, you can see that my shoulders, my elbows are parallel. I've got the hand on top of the ball. I'm using my elbow as a sight. Now, once again, you can have the glove out this way towards the hitter, or you can curl it in. I prefer to curl it in.
You come from here, you want to keep all this in line, and then you go, boom,
Got it.
elbow, eyes, and everything, and then right there. And I'll have him probably close up a little bit from here. Keep him a little bit longer on the front side and quieter so that he can land in a good position.
Then I'm here. I have to go all the way across. Yeah. Right here. Okay? I'm close. Right here. From here. Bam. You stay close. You close here. I'm close. Already. I don't have to be like this. No, I'm close. I'm right here. From here, you go forward.
Just reach out and land. Guys get lazy here.
Right.
To feel what this is doing. Everything that
side.
you said about your core. To have this to pull.
Right.
Because they work together.
So here's what I would do.
Do you like this? Go ahead, Steph.
I think it would. So
yeah,
you're-
just pull.
Yeah.
To feel that, as opposed to being lame with this, the propensity to fly over.
Right.
No?
So in closing, no, I like any drill that's going to get you to a point where I call this box right here,
Yep.
trying to keep everything in the box. So the glove hand, let me see the glove real quick. As quiet as you can keep this front side
Okay.
and this head,
Yep.
I call keeping in the box. Here's the way I used to pitch. I used to get it out of that box, and I used to think that that was the way to rotate and deliver power.
Okay.
Then I learned the best way is to keep it in the box. My head's going straight, my glove is quiet. Now I land in a position where I could field. That's the Greg Maddux slap.
Well, it reminds me of one we heard from David Bednar, the Pirates closer this year. He talked about using his front shoulder as a sight line for the target as long as he could. Did you ever think about that?
Well, what I did, I used my elbow. So
Elbow.
it's basically the same thing as what he's saying.
Right? You watch the angle of the arm. My arm comes out, full extension, towards you, towards the plate.
And actually bring it down.
We
to
talked
the
about
area I
this
want it.
yesterday, Petey. Go back to that. We're talking about the StatCast and where the release point is. You said you threw it out in front of your face.
Yes, I wanted to
So
kind
you
of.
try to get as far as to home plate as you can.
I wanted to have an imaginary tube where I wanted to have my hand where I kind of wanted to see it and then follow the ball all the way, coming back, going away, or bouncing down. I wanted to see it.
Consistent release point.
Let's examine the number 2 position and getting to the number 2 position. Once again, knee high, as we lead down, the side of the leg facing through, all right? Using our block. This is the number 2 position, okay? Knee moves, separates the hand. As you're leading out, just at the point where you're just about to make contact, the elbows raise the hands to the shoulder height. Now, there are some pitches that'll hold the ball in the number 2 position slightly above the shoulder. Some hold it level with the shoulder. Some will actually have it down a little bit. Really doesn't make any difference as long as when he lands, he can get back into the number 3 position, the high cock position properly, right? 2 position, 3 position. Now, a lot of pitchers have trouble getting to the number 2 position, all right? Remember, it's the elbows that lift the hands. One way to think about it, Dick Mills teaches this, and I think it's a real good exercise. Just simple jumping jack. Start with your thumbs and your index fingers together. Jumping jack motion. Now what happens with a jumping jack is that the elbows lift the hands up into the position. Now in order to do it, you're starting here. Your elbows are slightly in front of the body, and the hands obviously in front of the body, to allow you to go up into the jumping jack position. So this is the number 2 position, jumping jack. We'll just stop right here. That's the number 2 position. As you land, number 3 position. So if you're having problems with it, start with the jumping jack. 2, 3. Very simple. All right, let's work on, we got 1 baseball in the glove. When the hands separate, right, the knee is high. As the hands separate, it's very important that the baseball be taken out of the glove with the fingers on top and the thumb on the bottom. A lot of pitchers, and some even in the major leagues, will grab the ball from the side. Some even grab it from the bottom. What that does is, you can even see it with the elbow. It puts a lot of stress on the elbow. It's called wrist hooking. If you hear any pitchers wrist hooking, that's what they mean. They're pulling the ball out and they're hooking their wrist to get the ball out of the glove. When you're in this position, as the knee drops, as the hands separate, right, that's the key. Fingers on top, thumb on the bottom. All right. A lot of pitchers, and I was one of them, as the hands break, I used to come straight down before I would lead out. All right? That has a lot of problems as far as getting into the high cock position. I know from old photos that I was able to get to that position, but many pitchers have trouble because they get the arm down. And by the time they get up into the high cock position where they land, you'll notice that my arm is in the number 2 position, when as I land, I should be in the number 3 position. A lot of times that's caused by too much arm action, either because it's straight down, or because the pitcher is bringing it straight back, or they're flailing. Some pitchers get the elbow behind the back. This is called flailing. As the hand comes out of the glove, they flail to the side. Puts a lot of stress on the shoulder. When you release the ball properly from the glove, all right, the hands separate. All right, the hands are in front of the body. Now, Roger Clemens has developed muscle memory. And what he does is, as the hands separate, he comes down, slightly back. His arm never straightens completely. The elbows come up, bringing the hand, and then into the high cock position. All right, it's called a tight circle. Now, his is very good, and Toronto is teaching it to all of its minor leaguers. His hand with the ball, I'll leave the glove here, as he drops, if you look at it from the side, it looks like his arm is straight, but it's not. It's still in a flex position, hand on top of the ball, and it's slightly out in front of his body as his elbows raise to go up into the number 3 position. So that's a great way to teach kids. If they have a straight arm and they're in the number 2 position as they land, they're in the number 3 position, fine, leave them alone. But if you find that the arm is straight and as they land, they're not in the high cock position, then you've got to shorten up that circle. And you have to come down, slightly back, up, and then into the number 3 position. You don't want to come straight back towards second base. A lot of coaches teach that. It's ludicrous. Right? When the arm comes back, it's just back enough to flex so that the elbows can bring the hand up and then into the high cock position. One thing we touched on earlier, and it's another reason that you want to make sure that you have a full circle of down, up, back, and then up into the 3 position, is that a lot of pitchers get to the high cock position too early. Right? As they're leading out, they're in this position. Now you can see the position of the ball to the head. Much too close to the head to allow me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw. As you start to throw, the elbow always leads the ball. So if you're in a proper position, either 90 degrees or slightly back, as your hips start to open, as you start to throw, the elbow leads out in front. And you have to have room if your ball is too close to the head, there's no room to get velocity. You're just throwing from here more like a catcher would than a pitcher where you can really get out and back. So the tight circle, the whole action, down, back, up, number 3. Work on that, you'll have no trouble at all. If you have to, go back to the jumping jacks, jumping jack motion, and get into the number 3 position. All right, beginning in the number 3 position, right, where we've squished the bug, nose back behind the belt buckle, good body form along our imaginary line towards the plate, right? As we start to release the hip, all right, as we start to throw, again, the elbow is going to come out. This hip is going to drive forward. If you learn nothing more on this tape, absolutely nothing in pitching happens until you're in this position, right? Nothing. Now, think about it. Relief pitchers come in, nobody on base. What do? They pitch from the stretch position, right? If there was any truth to a windup providing velocity, then relief pitchers would come in and throw from the windup. What happens is, if you're in the proper position, with your head back over your belt buckle, and you're in the number 3 position, at this point, all right, as the hips start to drive, this hip is going to close. This heavy trunk action, all right, it's a very violent explosion of the trunk closing, only occurs if you can pull the posting foot from the rubber. We were all taught to push off the rubber. That was one of my problems. By pushing off the rubber, you end up keeping all of your weight on your heel. And as you start to drive out, your weight is so far over the heel that as the hips start to open, you just drag that hip through. You can't get that hip to explode to provide power to the pitch. And most pitches, I know I was like that, as I would throw the ball, after it would be released, my foot would still be back here, and then I would follow through. What you want to do is out of the number 3 position, right? And that's why it's important that as you come down and lead out, you squish the bug before you land. By squishing the bug and keeping the weight back over the ball of the foot, now I've released this hip. This hip can explode closed, and I'm going to drive in with this back knee. I'm going to go forward and in towards my body. All right? And that allows the back foot to come around. Now you notice when I follow through, the sole of my foot points up towards the sky, and my toe points you, or the third base side. And that allows me to fall over the leg. One other thing you'll notice is that as I deliver the ball, after the ball is thrown, right, you watch the angle of the arm. My arm comes out, full extension, towards you, towards the plate. Then it starts to decelerate, and it should be brought all the way to the side of the body. In order to do that, I have to show a flat back. All right, what do we mean by a flat back? You'll hear coaches in Little League all the time, the ball's staying up, coach will be yelling, show them a flat back, show them a flat back. What they mean is that after the pitch is delivered, as the hand goes down, right, you'll see the back of my shoulder. You'll actually see the back. If I had a hip pocket, you can see that. All the way down. What that allows you to do is fully decelerate the arm. Takes all the stress off of the shoulder. This hand comes all the way back. The other thing I think it does is that it aids in getting this leg up behind. If you watch my back and then watch my leg, they move in unison. And I can really get that back foot up behind. That allows me to cross over. If you're in the number 3 position, this knee, as you start to explode the hips, you'll notice this hip, the knee rather, is frozen here. It doesn't drift in towards the hitter. As it's here, as you start to finish, the leg will straighten as you fall over it. But once you're out in this position here, that knee is set. Don't let it drift in towards the plate. A great drill for learning how to use a flat back or follow through in general is to get down in this position here. It's like the number 3 position. What we're going to do is, I've got my back foot, if you can see it, I'm squishing the bug. My left toe, lead toe, is pointed towards the right hand batter's box. My shoulders are still closed. My left hip, lead hip, is open slightly, just like if we were landing. Now I'm just going to follow through. My knee is locked. It's going to stay in this position. I'm going to come up and over to follow through. Try it again. We talked about the stride, and obviously when you're on the balance beam, your stride is going to be much shorter. When you're on flat ground, your stride is probably going to tend to be shorter than it would be on the mound when you're falling. But that's the importance of keeping the weight back. Right? You don't want to get up there on the mound after doing the balance beam drills and doing everything properly and then fall forward. What you want to do is get out to a comfortable stride, and it's approximately 90% of your height. What they say to do is, starting from the rubber, just draw out 5 steps and draw a line. Now, depends on your feet. If you're 5'7", you got size 12 feet, then you've got to maybe shorten that up. But that's approximately where you want to land. All right? Now again, I'm not on a mound, but I'm trying to keep the weight back. And I'm falling just a bit short of that line, which is fine, as long as the weight is back. As we're leading out, in order to keep your weight back, this is something that you'll do on a balance beam, and when you get on the mound, it's very important. So as you start to lead down, as the hands separate, it's a feeling of pulling back with the upper body. You lead out with the front hip, not with the shoulder. The hip goes down and out first, before the shoulder moves at all. So you are leaning back slightly, keeping the head behind the belly button. Right? Your belt buckle, your belly button, your nose is back here. So as you lead out, right, so that when you land in the high cock position, your nose is still in the center of your body. That will allow you to properly open the hips and generate the power with that explosion of the trunk and the hips. Right, here's a great drill that you can do on flat ground, and then eventually you want to be able to do it on the balance beam. And this will ensure that your weight is on the ball of your foot and that you're keeping your weight back as you're leading out for the number 2 position. What I want you to do is just start with the jumping jack position, thumbs and index finger together, knee high. Now, I got the weight on the ball of the foot. As I start down to get into the number 2 position, I stop and then bring the foot back up without touching the ground. All right? That takes some practice to get used to the balance. It's up, number 2, back up. All right, you try that a couple of times, then do it on the beam. All right, let's get back to the balance beam. One drill we can start there is you're going to start with the ball in the glove, and you're going to hold it there. Up, down, knee high, out, and then stop in the high cock position. All right, and you're just going to keep coming up, hands separate, high cock position. All right, you're going to keep doing that over and over and over. Then the next drill, grab a piece of towel, get out into the high cock position. All right, get out as far as you can, head back behind, get into the proper position, and then you're just going to follow through, and you use the towel here as resistance. I'm running out of room here, you get the idea. Here I am in the number 3 position, high cocked, follow through, fall over. Then what you'll do, again, the ball is in the glove. Knee high, go through the entire motion. Then turn around, start from the wind-up, go through your motion. Eventually what you want to do is you want to be able to do, starting from here, with your eyes closed. And this is not that easy. You close your eyes, land on the beam. It takes practice. Then, starting in this position, Close your eyes, fall over. There are a lot of pitchers that have done this drill that can do their full wind-up position entirely with their eyes closed. You can imagine that if you can get your weight back, stay balanced, land on this beam in the proper position with your eyes closed, you've really mastered it. All right, let's quickly review what we've done so far. First off, we want to make sure that when we start our delivery, that we flex the back leg, which brings the head and the upper body over the ball of the foot. Remember, the heel is off the ground. All right, as we lift the knee up, the foot is either pointed up or pointed down, putting some tension on the leg. All right, as the leg starts to drop, that's the signal for the hands to separate. As we lead down, the side of the foot, the side of the lead leg, all the way up to the hip, are facing the hitter. Our belt buckle is facing third base. For a left-handed pitcher, it would be towards the first baseman. As we drop down, all right, now this is the point where as the hands are separating, as we're leading down, if the weight is properly balanced over the sole of the ball of the foot here, you can now lift the heel and start to squish the bug. If you watch Mariano Rivera, you have a forehead VCR, tape him from behind. What you'll see is as he starts to lead out, he squishes that bug. He's in this position. As he releases the ball, his foot is already pulled away from the rubber. You can really watch the way his leg drives in. All right, without the beam, let's try working on the form of the lead leg as it drops from the high knee position. All right? Remember, as the knee drops, that's the signal to break the hands. All right, we'll work on that a little bit in a minute. As the leg starts to drop, you'll notice that the side of my foot, the lead foot, the side of the leg, all the way up to the hip, are facing the hitter. All right? That's very important because it keeps the entire body closed. Again, that's the reason we have the ball in the glove. As the hands separate and we start out, we want to use that elbow as a sight. So the shoulders have to be straight along the imaginary line between second base and the plate. The front foot, the lead foot, comes out. We're showing the side of our foot to the hitter. All right? Now, let's imagine out of the high knee position, as I'm leading out, the hands are separated. Just before I land, all right, this is a position that's known as the number 2 position, all right? Both elbows are even with my shoulder, all right? I have not landed yet. Let's imagine here I got 2 inches. I'm standing on a wooden block here. As the foot lands, this front hip is going to open up a little bit, and that's going to allow the foot to land. You'll notice that my head stays back, my shoulders and my upper body stay closed, right along the imaginary line. All right, now from the front, you can see this is the number 2 position. All right, you can see that my shoulders, my elbows are parallel. I've got the hand on top of the ball. I'm using my elbow as a sight. Now, once again, you can have the glove out this way towards the hitter, or you can curl it in. I prefer to curl it in. All right. You can see that the upper body is completely closed. That's important. That's where the power is going to come from as we land. Now, after we leave the block, all right, and we hit the ground, as the foot lands, that's the signal, as the foot lands, to go from the number 2 position to the number 3 position, the high cock position. And that happens just as the front foot plants. All right, number 2 position, number 3 position. Now what happens in the number 3 position is the upper body stays closed, but the front hip, from the number 2 position, the front hip has to open slightly in order to let the foot land with the toe pointed towards the right-handed batter's box. So imagine now that I'm in the air in the number 2 position. As I land, I open up slightly with the hip. Number 3 position, you'll notice the back foot squishing the bug. Let's follow this motion right along the beam. Should make it a little clearer. On the balls of the feet, again I got a ball inside the glove, one in my hand. All right, knee high. As we start to lead out, all right, my toe is pointed towards the right-handed batter's box, and I've slightly opened up my left hip. But my shoulders are still on line. Now, one other thing you should notice is that my head is over my knee. A lot of pitchers you'll see lean back in this position, right? You see them closer towards the first baseman. You really should be right here, balanced, in a good position. The knee should be straight up, right? It shouldn't be in too much, and it shouldn't be open too much, causing the hip to open way open early, right? The hip is open just enough to where it helps release the right hip. Now I squish the bug behind. That allows us to bring the hip up, get the foot out.
Don't let anyone say that it's just a game, for I've seen other teams and it's never the same.